Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SFL podcast presented to you exclusively by APM Music here on YouTube. I am your host, the SFL podcast, with I think I've been now upgraded to the 54th most. Sure, let's go with that. Jack Brown, alongside my usual analyst, Ryan Michaels, and owner of the Mexico City Aztecs, Ramos Lynn. How y'all doing here tonight?
Doing well. It's been a long week. I'm ready.
Ready for some craziness in the SFL, which we'll be getting into that shortly. But first off, before we get into that, the SFL now has an Instagram page. That's right. If you want to see the SFL post all their food pics, sure, let's roll with that. You can hit up Simulation FL on Instagram. That is Simulation FL, just like our website, and I think literally everything else. It's a fun time over there, although there's no posts up yet. We got some football games we played this week, and we're going to start off in the South with Tallahassee heading over to OKC. Tallahassee, they've been lighting it up on the ground this year so far. While OKC, they're keeping up essentially kind of what they're doing. They launch out of the gate, but now they've kind of started to slow to a trickle. Ramos, we played them both last season. You're now looking at them going into week 6. How do you feel about this game coming into it?
I think that Tallahassee could easily be dominating this game if they give the ball to Yaya and Yola, which is basically what they've done all season long. We see Yaya and Yola get those incredible games where he gets 4 touchdowns and basically is unstoppable. As far as Oklahoma City, they need to keep the game close from the start and do what they did in the first half against Atlanta. They were able to get the ball to Tiberius Bovine. We saw that amazing catch and run that Tiberius Bovine had to end the first half against Atlanta. That tied the ball game going into halftime. And unfortunately for Oklahoma City, they were able to only score 3 points for the rest of the game. But overall, I think that Tallahassee, if they gave the ball to the running back number 28, Yaya and Yola, who is running away, no pun intended, with MVP honors at this point of the season, you have to think. There's some others in there. Obviously, you still have Ron Cochran of the Alaska Storm. You still have and no no
Tallahassee
no
Storm?
bias. So, did I say that? Sorry, Alaska Storm.
Yeah.
You have to and not biased. Honestly, I'm just saying we might see a Mark Mosley in the SFL. Cole Warner, 13 out of 13. Just saying. But
Oh,
Jaya and
really?
Yola has been outstanding, and I think that Tallahassee will win this game convincingly.
Already then. Well, Ryan got to see the Wrath of Tallahassee last week. Nearly a 50 burger put up on you. Ha ha. That's funny. Beat up on the hyenas. That's what you always got to
Exactly. No respect.
do. Yeah, I have no respect for you, and I have no respect for the Sharks. But now we're going to, Ryan, I'm going to give this game to you. We're going to fling it out east now. London coming over to Baltimore for the first time that a European team has come to visit the city. I'm trying to think of like what their nickname is. I know they have one. It's just like I don't know. Point is, it's close they'll ever get to the capital city as far as current SFL teams go. London suffered a loss last week, which usually week 5 they start streaking one way or the other. Unfortunately, this one was not in a winning direction. That is quite alarming. So, Ryan, how are you feeling about this game coming into it?
Although London, yeah, last season they were 3-1 and they ended up going on a pretty big skid there. Um, I still like them in this matchup between them and Baltimore. You have Amon Takes who's going to be able to take away that running game. I mean, he's been actually really good at stopping a lot of the opposing running game. He's, I believe, up there in the top 5 in total tackles for the league, and I mean, I'm sure there's
London
someone else
doesn't
up
have a
there.
running back.
Well, I mean, Alaska didn't have one last year, but they ended up winning it all. So,
True. True,
um,
but you're talking about it as if like Baltimore's going to stop running game when London really doesn't have
yeah,
one.
I mean, they don't really have a running game. I mean, I'll give you that. But not only that, I mean, last week, London going up against Alaska, they still put up 317 yards passing. And although they ended up losing 30 to 17, I mean, it was the first half, they scored 14 of their 17 points. It was just the Alaska defense showed up in that second half. just they continue to show that dominance. But I mean, London's putting up 317 on what is actually one of the best defenses in the league currently. It's a really good accomplishment for them. And then on the flip side, you got Baltimore. They put up 100 yards rushing last week against St. Louis, 248 yards passing. And the one shining spot really for them, I believe, was that their quarterback Mike Dazzo. He only threw one interception against the St. Louis defense. That I mean, they've been really pick interception happy on opposing offenses, and if they have a shot at winning this game, it's got to be behind Mike Dazzo. He's got to be accurate. He's got to take care of that football. He's got to find those open men, and I think he'll be able to put him up on top and above the London Knights this week.
Alrighty, and you're speaking of how the Baltimore Vultures beat the St. Louis Gladiators last week, but now they're flinging over to beat the playing at the Queen City Corsairs, which is a game that's going to be played at 5 p.m. Central. I know that Andy posted that into the SFL Alerts tab, but it may not have gotten out into, say the YouTube audience, and it isn't on the broadcast graphic, which, for those who follow on Twitter or whatnot, you you certainly got that. I'm not sure if you got the correction. So next up, we have the St. Louis Gladiators heading off to Queen City. St. Louis, definitely one of the hotter defenses in the league. Definitely, as Ryan Michael said over here, pick happy. While the Queen City Corsairs are hosting them, and they've been okay on their side of things. They beat the Chicago Wildcats 23-14 last week. Always good, always juicy. So Ramos, looking into this one in particular, a good mid-season clash for both the teams to kind of prove themselves, especially in St. Louis's end. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, whatever happens, for St. Louis to even have a shot of winning this game, they need to score some points. They need to show that they can score more than only 10 points. Last game against Baltimore, and again, I understand Baltimore is a really talented defense, but they only scored 14. And against this team in Queen City, you have to score at least, especially in Queen City, you have to score at least, I will say, 24 points so you have a shot against the Corsairs. Will they do it? I doubt it. I think that Queen City has the defense, and I don't think that St. Louis right now has the firepower to keep up. I think that Queen City will run the ball with the running backs and with just control the ball, and I don't think that St. Louis will have much to show for as a response. Therefore, in Queen City, I think for me it's a safe choice to say that the Corsairs will win this game pretty confidently. I think that honestly, Queen City could win this game by double digits.
All righty, and so now with that, we fling ourselves out west to a battle between master and apprentice. The Vancouver Legion are hosting the Denver Nightwings, as the Nightwings walked away in the first loss in Vice Wars history to the Las Vegas Fury, 1815. That was a pretty big oof, and larger yet, the Nightwings are playing it in Canada Field up in Vancouver, eh? So Ryan, looking at this in particular, do you think Jeremy's going to be able to have what it takes to overthrow his master in Andy Hamilton of the Vancouver Legion?
Yeah, I'm thinking he'll be able to actually. I mean, last week against Las Vegas, they held the lead up until I believe it was about a minute left in the game, maybe even less than that. And then they had a punt and that pinned them down at the 1 yard line. And in one of the most bizarre kind of play calling series I've seen, they decided to run two running plays from the 1 yard line, stopped on the first play, and then ended up being a safety on the second play. So I mean, they were right there with one of the better offensive teams in the league, and they were keeping it really close. It was just an unfortunate circumstance for them last week, and I mean, Denver and Vancouver in Vancouver, it like you said, it's the teacher versus the student, and Vancouver's had a little bit of a rough season so far. They lost last week to San Francisco 13-16. Um, in the beginning of the game, Cody had a really big run. I think it was about 70 plus yards. He took on a handoff. Outside of that one run, though, he had 11 rushes for about 50 yards total. That's not going to be good enough to go against Denver. So unless they're going to be able to get him going more, they got to rely on Mark Biddix, and right now, last week he didn't do terribly well. He only had 205 yards, threw 3 interceptions, was sacked 6 times. So the Vancouver offensive line's really got to be worried about protecting their quarterback and opening up holes for their running back on a more consistent basis. For Denver, it's on kind of on the flip side. They had a little bit more productive on the offense for the passing. They had 231 yards. Uh, Granted, I believe all but 6 of their points were scored by a field goal when they had an extra point blocked in the early going of the game against Las Vegas. Um, for them, they got to get their offense moving a little bit better. The defense has shown that it can definitely keep opposing offenses in check, but uh, granted, last week also Josh Miller for Denver, he did complete 80% of his passes. He had a touchdown, 231 yards. He was only sacked 1 time, so that offensive line is doing their jobs. I think it more kind of comes down to they really need to get their running back Jarek McChesney going. He had 25 carries for only 67 yards last week, and that's not going to cut it for an offense to keep a balanced attack. That's under 3 yards a carry, and in the SFL, that's not going to cut it to make yourself a top flight team. So um, I'm gonna go. I am gonna go though with Denver. I see Jeremy Vega and just being able to lead his team, and he's figured out that offense in certain weeks. He scored 34 points in weeks. But then the next week he scored maybe 12. I'm thinking he's gonna be able to figure it out for his offense, though. I mean, Andy Hamilton, he's a great owner in his own right. He's having a little bit of a down season, but I see Denver kind of being able to come back from it.
Alrighty, and before we head into the primetime games, we have the third installment in the battle for Lake Michigan between the Indianapolis Red Devils as they head off to see the glorious Windy City and take on the Chicago Wildcats. The Wildcats have not had the easiest season so far. Neither have the Red Devils, really. Both are towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So heading over to Ramos, these two teams are definitely getting in more of a desperate mindset. So how are you feeling about this going into it?
Yeah, worth noting now, Chicago, as breaking news, it was like 2 hours ago. They got a new running back. They let go Jay Calvin Kim, who was a pretty good running back. Obviously, played with us for a couple seasons, and then he went to Tallahassee. And now, obviously, they have not had a good running game since Deion Hawkins left. Now, Jared Willis, who is a new running back, trying to carry that load for Chicago, and they've had a few transactions on their offense. They let go 2 of their wide receivers. Now their two of the wide receivers are have been in the vicinity for a couple weeks. So, trying to find a new a new chemistry on this offense for Chicago going against this Indianapolis team who has really looked pretty sluggish. I'm not sure if it's what it is, that new quarterback. I'm not sure if it's whatever it is. They have not looked very strong. So for this game, I like Chicago to win at home. I think that the new running back will light up a spark on their offense. The wide receivers have done well, the new ones, and with E.T. King and those guys on offense, I think they will able to score some points. I like what I saw on defense from Chicago last week against the Queen City Corsairs. I think that I was expecting honestly Queen City to drop probably a little bit more than 23 points on them, but overall, I think that Chicago has the tools to probably win this game in a close one. I think that maybe we will see like a 20-17 game where the Wildcats will be able to come out on top.
Alrighty, and now we head to prime time. First off, we got Sunday night. San Francisco at Alaska. San Francisco being one of only two teams to beat the Alaska Storm in one of the weirdest back-to-back stretches of games for a team last season. While, of course, Alaska coming in, barreling through everybody. San Francisco certainly has momentum with new quarterback Rob Robbie, clearly just absolutely dominating everybody. So, Ryan Michaels, looking at this game out west, do you think San Francisco has the makings to pull off a pretty big upset
Uh,
for the midpoint of season 11?
I'm To be honest, I love Rob Robbie, and I love how San Francisco's really gotten a jolt of energy from him as he's kind of joined the team in week 3. I just I can't pick against Alaska right now. That offense has just been dominating. They've averaged 31.6 points a game, over 415 yards total per game. Without a star halfback, they're still averaging at least 71 yards a game. Ron Cochran, he's slinging the ball all over the field. They're converting on 63% of their third downs, and they've only given the ball away 6 times. I mean, I've said it before, Mighty, he's got this offense just well-oiled machine, man. They can't be stopped, it seems like. And that defense, I mean, is also one of the best in the leagues. And actually, I believe it's the top 3. I think they are actually third. Yeah, third place in points allowed per game at 15.2. The only 2 teams above them are Mexico City and Carolina, and I mean those are some stout defenses to go against it. Alaska only allows 308 yards per game total. Uh, for San Francisco, it's just it's a tall order to fill. I mean, their defense is down towards the bottom, honestly, towards the for most allowed yards allowed per game. They're allowing 410 total, almost 200 yards rushing per game. And although Alaska doesn't have that star halfback, they do have that star fullback that kind of paves the way, and it could spell doom for that San Francisco defense. I mean, 200 almost 200 yards allowed rushing, and they even with the non-star halfback, it could be a very long game and tiring game for that defense. Um, if San Francisco is able to pull it off, that defense has really got to stop that Alaska offense to allow Robbie some time to be able to spend on the field and just try to match Alaska punch for punch. I mean, that's the best way to do it is you just got to outduel them, honestly. Right now, I just don't see many teams doing it. So I'm gonna have to go with Alaska. I'd probably give them. They're averaging 30 points. I'd almost probably say 34, maybe 34-17.
For Alaska over San
Yeah,
Fran
for
right there.
34-17, Alaska over San Fran.
Already. So Ramos, do you agree with this? Obviously this is your own conference. Alaska number 1, and San Francisco square in the middle at 4th place. Do you think that San Francisco is going to be able to pull off this potential upset?
I don't want to actually like predict the actual like score who's gonna win. I'll be calling this game with Chris Curtis on Sunday night. But I will say this: I think that San Francisco, for them to have a shot, I think they have to start well defensively. And by well, I mean 3 and out to start off, maybe an interception, maybe a big sack that can put their offense in good field position. They need to have a strong start so they can keep up with this Alaska machine. Las Vegas was able to have a good start. They were unable to complete the upset. They fell 26-23 a few weeks back, but that's why they did. They started very strong on defense, and by halftime, it was a very close game. So I think that's what San Francisco needs to do to have a shot in this ball game. To have at halftime, if not the lead, at least keep it close. Do not let Evan Carroll and Ryan Davidson and all those guys get pick sixes all over the place, and Alex Dominguez sacks, and you know last thing you know, Jeff Como is having a 35-yard touchdown, and that spells problems for San Fran. So I think that for them to pull off the offset, they need to start really, really strong defensively. Rob Roby, I really like him. He's a great quarterback, great young quarterback, future Pro Bowler, I think. Needs to take care of the ball and needs to make smart decisions. If it's taking a sack instead of throwing a pick six, I mean, take it. But you cannot fall behind 14 nothing, 21 nothing by the first quarter. That simply cannot happen.
So, so that's definitely gonna be an interesting game as Ramos was apparently doing burnouts during his analysis right there. Oh man. Anyway, he's
Man, people here are crazy. I'm not sure. I mean, it's Thursday night. We're doing Thursday night, and people going crazy, bro.
yeah, because they're getting excited for SFL football on Monday for Mexico City, but that's not going to be talked about for another couple minutes. But now we've turned the clocks back, or I guess forward, to tonight. We have Dallas heading over to Tulsa in a bottom of the standings clash in the Southern Conference. The combined record between these two teams here is 2-7. Dallas at 1-3, Tulsa at 1-4, getting the first win over the New Orleans Pharaohs, 27-7. So Ryan, clearly these two teams are almost insanely desperate for a win at this point. Who do you think is going to keep building the momentum heading into the rest of the season?
Building a momentum. I mean, Tulsa got their win last week. They were able to pull it out there against New Orleans. Um, for Dallas, though, they had their bye week last week, so they got that time to be able to prepare. That offense has shown flashes of brilliance. The defense hasn't been quite there like it was the end of last season. Um, but I like Dallas in this game. At Tulsa, they've just been too sporadic. They have not had very much of a rushing game for me. I believe last week was one of their better ones of the season so far, and that was at 96 yards. Um, they were able to get Sanzo Robinson some room. I believe he was averaging around 1 to 2 yards a carry. This last week, he was able to average 4 yards against New Orleans, and New Orleans was able to get some pressure on the quarterback and have him throw a few interceptions, which could be what causes Tulsa's downfall if they can't get that running game going, having to rely on the arm of Michael Martin. Um, and for Dallas's offense, Shabazz Synergy, he had a split brilliance. He just showed off in season 9 back when he was his rookie, and they've had a really tough go of it the week right before their bye week, having to play against Atlanta when they lost 45-34. Um, they're not really being very balanced. Let's put it this way. I mean, Shabazz, the last game they played, literally threw almost 3 weeks worth of passes with 93 attempts and completing 61 of them, 639 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, granted, with those 93 attempts, I would have expected a lot more interceptions. He only had 3 of them in that game. So, I mean, he has the ability to take care of that ball, but you can only rely on the arm of your quarterback so much. You got to get that halfback, that running back included in the offense. And last game, he had 3 carries for 5 yards. He did have a few catches at least, so at least they are getting him involved in the passing game. But it's not likely that you're going to be able to keep that kind of that unbalance, I guess you want to say, up and keep a winning record, or actually get to a winning record. And I suppose in this case here. Um, that being said, like I said earlier, I do like Dallas in this game, and it's mostly because I feel that the passing game for Dallas will outpace the passing game for Tulsa. I don't think either running back is going to get much going this week. Um, it's going to come down to the arms of the quarterbacks, and right now Shabazz is looking like he's going to run away with the passing title with throwing almost 100 yards, 100 attempts a game, and it's going to be a close one, I think. I think it'll be quite the shootout. Almost, I think it might be similar to what the Atlanta Dallas game was last time last time in week 5. I'm thinking Dallas gets up there around 30, 34 points, and Tulsa will probably be up there about 28 to 30 points as well. So I'm gonna have to go probably 34-28 Dallas.
Okay, so Ramos, do you agree with Ryan on that decision right there that Dallas is going to take this one over Tulsa? Or do you think Tulsa is going to keep on building up momentum?
No, I will agree with Ryan. I think that Tulsa's secondary needs to step up because the ball is coming their way. I mean, we know Dallas. We've known Dallas for a few seasons now. They like to throw the ball 70 times a game if possible, if they have the opportunity. And I think that Tulsa's secondary needs to be ready for it. They will involve those receivers. They will throw the ball all over the yard, short, intermediate, deep. So that secondary needs to be ready. And if that secondary can go ahead and make some interceptions, Tulsa really has a shot at home. However, I think that Dallas's offense, just like Ryan said, I think they will outpace and overall gash this Tulsa's defense. And I'll agree with him. I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I think that Dallas indeed will be in between the 34 to 37 points, and Tulsa will be up there. I think that Tulsa has um, the offense. You know, they were able to demonstrate against New Orleans. They have the offense. They were able to score 30 points. The defense played well. They only allowed seven. So, um, you know, again, overall, I think that Dallas will be able to win this ball game, probably about 37 to 30. So, um, again, I think that Tulsa has shown some promise, but I think the Dallas's scheme, if per se, I think they will overwhelm the Tulsa defense. 37 to 30, I will go.
All righty, and we're gonna keep it down south for the next primetime matchup Saturday night. The Atlanta Swarm are heading over to Narlands, Louisiana, for a battle of, I guess, Cajun country, if you want to put it like this. Um, Atlanta has put themselves in one of the two automatic spots for the South, currently in second place, just behind the Tallahassee Pride. Meanwhile, the Pharaohs are certainly playing. They're 1-3. So the Pharaohs definitely looking to get some more wins. Atlanta, I think they're now just trying to solidify that second place in the South spot, especially now that Houston's taken a week off this week. They could really get some distance here. Ryan, you're looking at this very crucial matchup down south. Do you think Atlanta is going to really solidify that second place spot?
To be honest, against New Orleans, I'm thinking it's going to be likely, as much as it pains me to say, with us being pretty much right behind them. Um, but against New Orleans, the offense of New Orleans hasn't quite come around as much as I thought it was going to about this time of the season. As Ramos alluded to earlier, against Tulsa, they only scored 7 points, New Orleans, that is. They actually totaled under 180 yards of offense completely for the game. They only had 157 pass yards, 31 rush yards, and just the one touchdown through the air. I believe it was going to Leroy Brown, but he only had 3 catches for 35 yards, and it's it's much like I was saying with Tulsa's offense when I was going about when with against Dallas. It's just I don't know if they're going to be able to outpace the offense of Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta has gotten Marcus Dunhill. He's really shown flashes of brilliance, and I believe we've said it before that Marcus and Kentez of Houston on my team are looking like they could be the front runners for the quarterback class this season. Not so sure about offensive rookies of the year. Colin Hart still's kind of got my vote for that, although he did have a kind of a down week this last week. Um, but it's Atlanta versus New Orleans is going to be a battle of the South. I feel Atlanta's going to be able to pull away this one, and it's going to be pretty convincing in the early going. I don't see New Orleans offense being able to keep up with Atlanta's offense. And I actually think it could be a similar score to what happened in the Tulsa New Orleans game where it was 27-20 with Atlanta coming out on top. 27-7, sorry, not 21-7-20.
Yeah. Have you watched any games, Ryan? Good lord.
I don't know. I'm just here so I
and
don't get
and
fined.
yeah, and you better keep talking. Alrighty, so Ramos, again, as Ryan said, this is probably going to be a win for Atlanta. Do you agree with him that they're going to solidify, or do you think that New Orleans is going to somehow win this?
Yeah, I will go with Atlanta. I think that Marcus Dunhill has played pretty well, actually damn well. I love the receiving core, right? I think that the receiving core that not Alaska, sorry, Atlanta has right now is really strong. Obviously, they have Butch Chisholm still there, and they have three really good wide receivers that can spell problems for this New Orleans defense. Defensively, Atlanta is always really strong. Pat Ketza was swatting the balls away all game long last week. Mahmoud Ashlani was playing really well as well. So obviously they have a lot of pieces on offense and on defense. And overall, I think that Atlanta will run away with this one. Um, the offense of New Orleans has just does not shown up at least in the past couple weeks. Nothing that I can say, hey, I think that Atlanta is in trouble. So overall, I will go with Atlanta, and I will agree with Ryan. I think there will be something around 24 to 10.
Podcast pick goes to Atlanta. And finally, before we head off for this week, we got a major clash out west. We have the Las Vegas Fury taking on the Mexico City Aztecs in Estadio Azteca in this week's Monday night fan night game. Both teams are coming off of historic franchise victories, with Las Vegas winning the first ever edition of Vice Wars. And Mexico City achieving their first ever shutout in franchise history over the Sioux Falls Sparrows at Liberty Park. Some craziness over there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Granted, it's in South Dakota, so that's not that crazy in hindsight. Anyway, so Ryan, which team do you think is going to keep up with their major momentum heading into this middle of the season?
So I said it earlier this podcast. I'm gonna say it again. And actually, I'm gonna go even a step further. In my opinion, the Mexico City defense. Sorry, not the offense. The defense is number one in the league. They're actually tied with, let's see here, with Carolina, allowing the fewest points per game. They're the only team in the SFL to allow under 300 yards a game total yardage. The only knock I could say is the turnover differential at only being +3. But with only having the 8 takeaways, that means they've only given the ball away on offense 5 times. It's the team, although they're not putting up a lot of points, they're only averaging 16.75 points a game. That defense, I mean, you alluded to it just a minute ago. They shut out a high-powered Sioux Falls offense. They averaged 130 yards a game. It's sorry, 130 yards games rushing. Granted, they only score about 18 points a game, but they've shown brilliance. I've heard kind of some rumblings about Sioux Falls here. In their wins, they've been averaging nearly 30 points. In their losses, I believe they averaged about maybe 6 or 7 points a game is what it was. So if Mexico City wins this game, it's going to be because they shut down the Sioux Falls offense. And on the flip
You
side,
mean Las Vegas?
sorry, yeah, Sioux Falls. I got stuck on Sioux Falls there. Las Vegas. If it's because they shut down Robert Redford and the Fury there. Um, and last week against Denver, Redford, he had kind of an off week. He had 89 rushing yards. Um, and just looking at the game overall against Denver, they didn't have a very good, I would say, a very good overall offensive game. Their only touchdown came late in the game, very late in the game. I believe it was like 30 seconds. They had 270 yards total offense. It just, I don't, I don't feel. I was more confident in them a couple weeks ago with their offense, but the last few weeks it seems to have kind of stuttered. Mexico City's defense, it's stout. I mean, you guys call it the wall, and I can't argue with it. I mean, you guys have been able to just shut down many offenses. Baltimore last week, 7-15. They had only 65 yards rushing. I mean, it's not last week. Sorry, that was not last week, was it? No, that was the Sioux Fall game. Sorry, I'm everywhere. So
The Aztecs beat everyone's point.
yeah, I mean, season 9 champions. Game over. Season's over. Call it a wrap, guys.
Yeah,
So,
well, we're not like Chicago, who just kind of gave up after losing the champion. Come on.
oh, so, but I mean, I am gonna go with Mexico City. The defense is it's just crazy. It's all over the place. They fly to the ball. It's just, I don't see Las Vegas' offense overpowering this defense. The defense is just too good.
Yeah, right. And who do you want the Aztecs to make that paycheck out to?
You can make it out to Ray Bentley and
Alrighty. And Ramos, before we go, well, as is apparent, we have a dog in this fight, so uh, it's gonna be big here. But who do you think? Well, how do you think that we're gonna do in this game? Looking at not Sioux Falls. Ryan, you've got me on this track too. Darn you. Anyway,
I'm sorry, buddy.
um, Yeah, basically, Ramos, how do you think we're going to fare in this game against a high intensity Las Vegas offense?
Yeah, I'll be fair. I think that Vegas has a very good running back. Obviously, you have Robert Redford, who is very good. And I think that Thomas Ryman at quarterback needs to throw the ball down the field a little bit more. I think that the Vegas coaching staff has put him in a situation where he's basically playing like Alex Smith, just checking the ball down all game long. And I think that if they give the for him to throw the ball deep to the wide receivers, I think that Vegas could be potentially a very explosive offense. But it's just like check down all day. As far as us, we've been playing really good defense, as Ryan was saying. Number one in yards allowed. We are tied for first in points allowed as well. Um, but we have to play better offense. We've been kicking field goals all season long, and at one point the field goals are not going to be enough. So we need to throw the ball a little bit more effectively, and our offensive line has to play a little bit better. Our offensive line has been solid. However, Ray Bentley, I think last week averaged just like 3 yards a game. So I think that our offensive line has to play a little bit better. And I think special teams will be key. If Vegas can get a kick return out of Max Jackson, or if we can get a kick return out of Jeffrey Dax, I think that's going to be super important because I think there's going to be a low scoring affair. Last week, we got a shutout, so that's 0 points allowed. But Vegas played really strong, and they only allowed 15 points against Denver, who came out of scoring 34 in back-to-back weeks. So I think there's gonna be very low scoring. So if special teams can get a kick return for a touchdown, for example, that could be potentially huge for this game.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. This is actually the special teams affair of the season. As we all know, Mexico City has Cole Varner. We're essentially like the Edmonton Eskimos of this league, except that instead of our quarterback being everyone on our team, it's our kicker and Cole Varner. May we worship him for MVP. Um, and Las Vegas, they're perpetually a special teams powerhouse, especially on that kick return side of things. So, with that, thanks for tuning into this SFL podcast presented to you exclusively by APM Music through the power of YouTube. I'm your host, Jack Brown, alongside my analysts, Ryan Michaels and Ramos Lynn. We'll say thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the SFL podcast.